This is the gentleman from Texas, Mr.
I
Brady.
yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
You know, at the end of the day, the Republican budget developed by our budget chairman, Paul Ryan, is a jobs bill. We know America faces an unemployment crisis today greater than any time during the Depression. We know roughly 23 million Americans can't even find a full-time job. We know that while government spending has rebounded and how other factors have rebounded in this economy, what we know is that jobs haven't rebounded. In fact, there's fewer jobs in America today than when this president took his oath of office. So we're going to talk about this budget and its impact on America's economy. And the truth of the matter is, if you like the way our economy is going, if you think this is the best we can do, stick with the president's budget. Stick with the Democrats' budget. It stays the course. But if you think we can do better for American hardworking taxpayers and job seekers, there is a choice of two futures. Mr. Speaker, it's a privilege to serve as the Vice Chairman of the Joint Economic Committee, the lead Republican for the House and Senate. I'd like to acknowledge the contributions of my fellow House Republicans, such as Dr. Burgess, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Duffy, Mr. Amash, Mr. Mulvaney, make as members of the Joint Economic Committee. We are here as a matter of law. Established in 1946 as the congressional counterpart to the President's Council of Economic Advisors, the Joint Economic Committee has provided timely insight on economic issues to the Congress for more than half a century. We helped lay the intellectual groundwork for the Kennedy tax cut in 1964. And its 1980 report, Plugging in the Supply Side, established the credibility of supply-side economics and paved the way for the Reagan tax cut in 1981. The Joint Economic Committee examines economic developments and evaluates the economic ramifications of policies being considered by the Congress, such as this budget. And work by the JEC Republicans received national attention during the debate over President Obama's plan to nationalize health care in the 111th Congress. And since the Humphrey Hawkins Full Employment and Balanced Growth Act of 1978, the Joint Economic Committee has performed an important function in this, the annual budget process, advising members of Congress on the potential economic impact the policies set forth in the President's budget and the budget resolution we consider today. Is for this purpose we come to the House floor this evening. Well, let's begin our assessment of the House budget by discussing some very key economic principles. Real growth in the economy, the foundation for creating jobs along Main Street for hardworking Americans, it comes from the private sector and not from government. The Joint Economic Committee has examined for the last 40 years the relationship between changes in government spending and jobs along Main Street, private payroll employment. And what's clear is that there is not a tight relationship, there is an inverse relationship. As federal government spending grows, jobs along Main Street shrink. And likewise, when the federal government takes a smaller share of resources from Main Street, more hardworking taxpayers find jobs as payroll employment increase. And this chart shows the blue being federal government spending, the red being jobs along Main Street. Every time Washington grows, Main Street shrinks. My colleagues across the aisle argue that federal spending should increase when private job growth plummets, but even during periods of sustained increases in federal spending and investment, jobs along Main Street have remained low or negative. And put simply, federal spending doesn't create jobs. Only when federal spending subsides do jobs grow. Next, there's a very close economic relationship, though, between what we call private, non-residential fixed investment growth. What that means is when businesses invest in buildings and software equipment, technology, jobs along Main Street grow. This chart shows, again, since 1971, in blue, the private investment, business, software, equipment, buildings. In red, job growth along Main Street. And it shows almost a nearly identical correlation. So in the end, growing jobs in America depends upon more investment in America. Not federal government spending, more investment to create those jobs. In spite of that evidence, 40 years of proven evidence, the White House President Obama and congressional Democrats have only pushed us deeper and deeper into debt. We have to remind ourselves that both the debt we hold to the public and our gross federal debt are reaching new post-war levels. They've never been this high since World War II. Publicly held federal debt roughly doubled to nearly 70% of the size of our economy in just the 4 years leading up to 2011. The same can be said of the gross federal debt, again reaching 100% of our economy, dangerous levels to the economy, dangerous levels to our credit rating, dangerous levels to our investment. And according to the President's latest budget estimates, this gross debt isn't expected to go under 100% for years and years. In fact, he proposes a budget that never balances. The President proposes a budget that takes us deeper and deeper and deeper into debt and hangs an anchor around America's economy. There is a better solution, and the model's right in front of us. All you have to do is compare President Obama's spending-driven approach to the economy and look at the last serious recession, that which President Reagan had to tackle. Despite bailouts and cash for clunkers and auto bailouts and stimulus and deficit spending in the trillions of dollars, you can tell this recovery continues to struggle. A good comparison is the Reagan recovery, because that recovery was fueled by Main Street, by private investment and free enterprise, just the opposite of President Obama and congressional Democrats. The White House's current focus on massive increases in federal spending, expanding government beyond imaginable levels to encourage growth, has been a failure. Meanwhile, the smaller government, free market approach utilized by the Reagan administration proved to be much more successful. Looking at the comparisons between the two, at this same point in the recession, President Reagan's increase in jobs was up almost 10%. President Obama is less than a third of that. The unemployment rate had dropped 3.5% at this point in the recovery under President Reagan. It's less than half of that under President Obama. And average growth, how did the economy grow? Under the free market, less spending approach of President Reagan, it grew by 6%. President Obama's record is about a third of that. These policies by this president and this Democrat Congress of the past 2 years, prior to Republican control, has failed. Point of the matter is, government needs to get out of the way. We need to cut government spending. We need to hold the line and reform our terrible tax system. We need to free our small businesses from the oppressive level of regulation coming out of Washington. Mr. Speaker, in a moment I'm going to talk about the tax reality. We're going to talk about how the current budget that we're living in today inflates our prices and damages real business. But at this time, I have a number of key speakers from the Joint Economic Committee and our conference I want to get to. So at this point, I would reserve the balance of my time.